Good evening. I'd like to call the school committee meeting to order on June 16th at 7 o'clock p.m. We'll start with a Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm seeing that we don't have a student
Correct.
representative tonight, correct?
Correct.
So we'd like to open it up for a public comment or communications. Do we have anybody?
We do not.
So we're going to jump down to our old business. We need to get a signer for the payroll warrants and for the account payable warrants. So I'd be looking for a prime person to do it and then an alternate.
Is it possible for us to skip ahead and talk about the electronic signature now, or we can't take it out of order?
We can jump forward and talk about it.
Is that all right if we take it out of order too?
So we're going to jump down to electronic signatures. Dr. Vera, would you like to speak on that?
Sure. So let me give you some background in some work that we've done since our last meeting. And we talked to our school attorney on this as well. What a lot of municipalities and boards have done is move to the signing using electronic signature as a signing document. This was done in an amendment to the Massachusetts deed indexing all the way back to 2018, and it's a part of MGL 110G, which talks about that that what school committees and boards need to do is have a properly called meeting, which we had, stating that the board recognizes and accepts the provisions of 110G, and that executing documents by members with electronic signatures or with wet signatures will carry the same legal weight and effect. And that's in essence what the law says. So what we'll need to do when we get down to our consent agenda item is have you recognize that and make the motion that you understand and accept and recognize the provisions of MGL 110G, and that electronic signatures carry the same weight and validity of a wet signature. At that point, we'd have to inform the municipal side that that's how we're going to be doing things, so they're also aware that we have gone to an electronic signature format.
So just to clarify for me, we can then continue to do either wet ink or electronic at that point?
Correct.
Yes.
You have a choice to come in. If you want to come in and do the actual physical
Yep.
signature, absolutely. If you can't, the electronic signatures also
Okay.
would be an option.
And then in terms of the availability of the documents of the warrants and the payroll that need to be signed, where are we at with that? Because you know what I
would be-
mean? I wouldn't provide an electronic signature without seeing the documents that I'm signing.
That's a Ms. Keegan question.
I just found out about this very recently, so
Okay.
I need to, I need to look into it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think either way, if we do the language to allow electronic signatures, then that step is at least is in place in the meantime.
I think one thing we, and again, this is what Mrs. Keegan's looking into, is how can, if you're going to sign them electronically, how do we, and what do we need to upload into a document for you to be able to have that backup?
Right.
So what would that process look like? What do we need to upload? When can we get it to you? So.
Right. I don't know if it's just because things are done differently in Douglas, but in some of the language from some of the other districts, it would say something like warrants are available to see within 24 hours before and after a school committee meeting to review, that sort of thing, so that it just gives some flexibility to.
Are we talking warrants or are we talking payroll? Are we talking both?
Both.
Okay, so
basically.
in terms of warrants and payroll, one of the things that we talked about is to have the ability to either, we could bring them to school committee meetings,
Right.
and either 20 minutes before or 20 minutes after, have that
Right.
available to you. I know we talked about that. In terms of payroll, there is that tight window that it needs to be done.
Right.
Whatever it is, Thursday between 10 and 2. So
Right.
then they can submit it by 4 or 5 o'clock when they leave. That uploading of information would need to be done by our office.
Okay. And then,
You're right, the actual warrants,
yeah,
you could do that
Yeah.
before a school committee meeting or after school committee meeting to actually look at the documents.
yeah. And the warrants are more time consuming, so I think that that's
Yeah.
more important. I'm just thinking, I can't, it's like trying to balance out the responsibility and the workload where, like, scanning in payroll is one thing, but scanning in physical time cards, that's another thing, and the time that's going to take out of somebody in the central office's business day, so.
Correct.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
They used to actually bring the warrants to school committee meetings. We always used to do them at school committee.
Right, like I'm saying, so that the time that it takes me personally to sign something takes a lot longer to sign warrants because there's a lot more paperwork to go through. Payroll is not that time consuming, it's just that it's a much shorter window to be able to get it done.
Correct.
So we could technically bring the warrants to school committee like they used to do a long time ago, and that would eliminate one person having to go down there all the time. So that's one thing that we could eliminate and just do it in school committee.
Correct.
Which seems to be like maybe the better idea. The time thing, like you said, the time cards are a whole other situation.
I mean, the other thing is, I think, at least since I've been here, it's always been the same person to do accounts payable and payroll. I don't know if I'm using the wrong words, but that doesn't have to necessarily be the same person. Like,
I think it needs to be,
Does it?
Ms. Keegan, I think it needs to be the same person who's always signing them, and if it's not always the same person, then I believe we need 3 signatures.
You can have, if you're talking about the normal, regular process, you have one person and an alternate.
One person, alternate.
Payables and payroll.
But if you're not going to, but if you're going to rotate people, you need 3 signatures, correct?
Yeah, well, it's not really, you're
You
not
can't
allowed to
rotate,
rotate
okay.
as far as designating one.
Yeah.
The law is very recent as far as allowing only one signer for payroll.
Well, like 1 year Brett was accounts payable and I was,
Is that what you mean?
That's what I mean.
Okay, I thought you
One-
meant having
No, like
Brown
that
sign
week
warrants
and
on
then- no.
1 week. Okay, you meant having one person, okay.
So like if somebody schedule-wise in their own lives could more easily commit to 20 minutes before a school committee meeting, then they could take accounts payable, and another person who's like, yeah, I can be there on Thursdays or Friday, like the general time on
Yeah,
payroll.
you can do that. It could be one person for
Right.
just, there's 2 separate
That's
mass
what
general laws.
That's what I mean.
And the one for payroll used to require the 3 signatures. It's very recent that they're allowing the one.
Right,
So
okay,
if it was more convenient for one person to do the payroll, then one person could do the payroll with an alternate,
right.
and then one person
A
would do
different person
payables
for-
with an
okay.
alternate.
In theory, okay,
And the normal process.
right. Okay.
Regular.
I mean, that's all the questions I have. In that case, I feel like, so we'll come back to the electronic signatures, right?
the only other question I had was, we need some kind of an emergency clause for those, that one time that could happen, that's, a check needs to be cut because someone was let go, or, which has happened while I was doing it. Because if you weren't here and one of us wasn't around, the check can't get cut. So some of those schools that we looked up did have that little emergency clause. It wasn't just for something like that, it was for any signature that needed to be done. So I think
an
that-
emergency,
Yeah,
okay.
it was just under there.
I believe those, if I remember reading that correctly, that was policy which would require 3 readings,
Right.
correct?
Yeah,
Yes, that would.
and there was an amount, like the highest amount that
Yep.
it could possibly be and stuff like that. While we're doing all this stuff. I
Yes.
think we definitely need to cover that.
Okay, I'll look at the policy and talk to Greg as well. Any other questions on the digital signatures?
No, I mean, I think in that case, I feel like I probably, of the 5 of us, have the most flexibility to do the daytime with payroll.
Okay.
So I'd be willing to continue on payroll, at least.
Julie, you had mentioned possibly with the warrants last time?
Yeah, I mean, if they could be brought here, of course, I'm always the last one here, but I can do something about that and readjust my schedule a little. If they could be brought here. I don't know if I can make it. When do they have to be signed again? They're once a week, right? I mean, once every other week?
Payable warrants are once every week typically.
Yeah, I mean, if we can bring them here like they used to, to commit something in the morning is tough, because I have such a small window to get out of my house.
Yeah, the payable warrants are no problem to do that. We used to do that all the time, but then it wasn't For the school committee at the time, they didn't want to do that, so we stopped doing it.
Yeah, I think
We
it was
definitely
just
stopped
a
doing it.
time.
Because we'd have to wait till we
consuming.
got back to in-person meetings.
I think it's because we would do it in the middle of the meeting.
No, we either did it, some schools, it was before the meeting, sometimes it was after.
I feel like I did it during it.
It could be whatever works. You know, if someone can make it beforehand, that's fine. Or if you want to do after the meeting adjourns and do it, that's fine too. You know, it's been done different ways over the years. But that would work either way.
So if I'm hearing correctly, Mrs. Charnock, did you say you would do the sign-up for the payroll?
Yes, but you can't nominate me.
I'm not going to nominate.
I know, you're moving things along. I know what you're doing.
What happens if there's extenuating circumstances and somebody who is the regular signer can't?
That's why, after
backup.
this process is done, we're going to go to a second signer.
Right.
Do nominations for a second signer. So
So we'll have an alternate.
have an
So
alternate.
Okay.
if
For
I,
the
like,
regular process, correct?
Heather's been
Correct.
the alternate for me for this
Okay.
time. And then I used to be the alternate for Lisa,
Okay,
if we're like out of town or sick or whatever.
gotcha.
So I'll be looking for a motion for payroll warrants. Nominate someone?
I nominate Becky.
Can I second my own nomination?
Second?
Second by Monique. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so I'll be looking for a backup for payroll warrants.
I'll be the backup.
Monique makes a motion to nominate herself as payroll warrants backup. Do I need a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next one is signer for accounts payable warrants.
I nominate Julie.
Julie, are you okay with that?
And under the condition that it can either be electronic or brought here, because I'm
Yep.
We can
just
bring it
nervous
in,
that I
yep.
can't commit in the morning.
I'm be looking for a second for Julie.
Second.
Second made by Becky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we need to have a backup for the accounts payable warrants.
I can do that, but it will have to be after, like, if I'm gonna look at them here, it's gonna have to be after. I can't get here before meetings. So I can be backup.
Be looking for a second for Becky.
Second.
Thank you, Lisa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes our old business, I do believe, so we're on to new business.
Just to be clear, if the warrants are brought here, 3 of us could sign them even if the,
That's always the case. Just keep
So-
in mind, as I've always said to everyone, because of the importance of actually looking at the documents and
Julie
all,
couldn't-
everybody can sign if you
Meeting, we
wanted
could all
to.
3 of
Can you
us
repeat
could
You
just
always
sign
have that
Didn't
right.
hear what you said.
But we could sign the warrants here if they're brought to the meeting, 3 of us, if we're not.
It needs 3 people.
Yeah.
If it's
Okay,
not.
okay.
If it's not the people officially on the.
Got you.
Two of you happen to be absent
But you
that
can
day.
still have that one designated accounts payable person with the backup, if that fell through or whatever, or those 2 people could make it to a school committee meeting, and the other 3 happen to be here, those other 3 people can always, the majority can always sign.
Okay, so there's. always-
Regardless of a process, you always have that, and 5 of you always have the right to sign.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and review and sign, yeah.
So technically, while the meeting's going on, if I'm like, I could actually be looking through them technically, right? Technically,
Technically, yes.
because that's a lot of paper. I remember doing those, so,
Is it?
all right. It can be, right? A lot of receipts and all that?
You can listen and read at the same time.
Yes. I'm a mom.
So moving on to new business, we'll start with the superintendent's report.
Awesome. All right. So just to recap, the past 2 weeks here have been phenomenal. It's been such a joy to be out and about. 2 weeks ago, we had graduation out here. It was a beautiful day. I was up on stage with Mrs. Shiniak, Mr. Romano. I think I underestimated the strength of the sun at 5:30, but what a beautiful ceremony. The kids did awesome. It was so great to have families here and people outside. The bagpiper was a nice touch, watching the kids, my first time watching the kids come down. It was a great ceremony. Past couple of days, we've had some promotion ceremonies. Saw Mrs. Mulder today at one. We've had preschool promotion. We've had, I think, first grade promotion. We had fifth grade promotion today and eighth grade promotion ceremonies, and they were great. We had a lot more flexibility being able to do them outside with the stipulations from DESI, so they were all held outside, and it was fun. In art show here last week, I know Mrs. Keegan came up to look at some of the art. Great seeing all the artwork the kids did. Again, a sense of normalcy for our kids. Field day was yesterday for the middle school. The middle school staff did an amazing job putting it together. They had people on the back softball field and up on the soccer field. Felt really bad for the elementary school kids because their field day was canceled on Monday because of the rain, and they got to see and hear the middle school kids enjoying their field day with the music and the ice cream trucks and the bouncy houses. But again, great seeing that happen. And then we've had a bunch of step-up days with our high school kids coming to the, middle school kids coming to the high school, first graders going to the elementary, and fifth going to the middle school. So again, just that normalcy that we get so used to at the end of the year. So it's been great to see that. As we wrap up the school year, just again, thank you to a bunch of people from me, starting off with the school committee. I don't think people realize that your job extends beyond, as we just saw, every other Wednesday for an hour-and-a-half meeting. It is coming in and signing those payrolls. It is coming in and signing the warrants. It's, as we've talked about, negotiating 4 different contracts. This year, all the time and the work that went into negotiating a hybrid model, a remote model, a in-person model, and then all the other behind-the-scenes stuff. So thank you to you for your support and everything that you've done, always keeping kids and teachers at the forefront of your decision-making. So thank you. Our leadership team has been truly incredible. When I started here in July, we had a very, very rough sketch of a return-to-school plan. And in 2.5 months, they worked so hard to put together a plan to bring kids and teachers back to school safely. And I second-guessed myself a lot over the past 170 days, but we were able to have kids back in school, have teachers back in school, and do so safely, which is incredible. Even if we think back to February and March, where we had started a plan to return kids back to school for full in-person instruction well before stuff was going on in DESI. I remember coming to a meeting in October talking about a plan, and I started it by saying, I know people might think I'm crazy talking about a return to school plan in March, but we need to do this now so we're ready. And I think when we look back, we brought our K-5 kids back on March 22nd, 3 weeks before the DESI recommendation. We brought our middle school kids back about a month before the DESI timeline, and we brought our high school kids back about 6 weeks before the DESI timeline. That's because we had a plan in place to do so, and that's because of the hard work of our leadership team. Our IT staff, awesome job. We're always handing out computers, but we had this grant come in. They had hundreds of iPads and Chromebooks dropped in their laps, and within 2-3 days, they had to turn it around and get them to kids. And it's one thing for a Chromebook not to work on a regular school day. It's another thing for a Chromebook not to work when kids are home and need it. Our custodians have been awesome. Like many of the departments, they're understaffed. They've had so much additional work added to their daily workload. They had to clean those high-touch areas on a regular basis. They had to come in and help out here in the cafeteria, cleaning desktops, which they typically don't do. And then we did twice a week those deep cleans after school and on weekends, which they came in. So they've been behind-the-scene unsung heroes, as have our cafeteria workers, who've come in and done a great job. If we think back to September through when we started, we were offering remote meals. And these ladies were coming in, prepping those meals, getting them ready to send home. So they've been awesome. Our administrative assistants in all the schools, unbelievable. They handle the normal phone calls, but this year they handled, is this an A day or a B day? Is this, where's my child? Are they in? Are they not in? Should I be calling in for COVID? Here's what I'm doing for contact tracing. Unbelievable, our administrative assistants. I think our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our faculty and staff, they had to completely reimagine how they taught and worked with kids. 100%. Goes against everything and all the training they had and the years of experience. And it's a testament that they did it, and they did so flawlessly. I'm going to share 2 stories with you. We're in the process right now of doing some interviews for some positions, and I talked to one of the finalists, and she said to me that she was so excited to get my phone call because at the end of the interview, teachers were talking about how much they loved kids, how much they loved Douglas, how much they loved working here. And she felt an energy through Zoom from our staff. And she said, that's not the same everywhere. You don't hear that everywhere. And that's truly amazing. Miss Sosha got a beautiful 1-page letter from a family who, after 7 years, is finally getting their last of their children out of the primary school. And what that parent shared about what the staff has done, from cafeteria workers to Mr. Luco to Miss Sosha to the staff for her family and her children, was truly heartwarming. And I just want, from the bottom of my heart, to thank faculty and staff for everything they've done. And finally, our kids. They always saw the glass as half full, not half empty. They didn't complain. They had a lot, I said this at graduation, they had a lot taken away from them. They had a lot taken away from them. They never complained. They never complained. And that's not the same elsewhere. You still walk around, I've gone to graduation ceremonies, promotion ceremonies, they're still all wearing their masks. Even though the outside world has changed, they're still not bucking the system, wearing their masks, doing the right thing. Our kids have been unbelievable these 180 days. And that gives me a great sense of hope as I look forward to the next school year and all the great things we're going to be able to do now that we have this behind us. So just a big thank you to everyone in the entire Douglas community for your continued support and what you've done this year for kids and for the school department. So thank you.
I also want to thank you, Dr. Vieira, for stepping into this role. In this year that we've had, you've been incredible, and as a parent, there was never a question. Communication was clear. If you didn't have all the answers, we knew follow-up was coming, and I appreciate that, and I'm sure other parents do too. So I want to thank you too for being a fearless leader through all of this.
Thank you.
I agree. I second that. I've said to you before, it doesn't seem like this is your first year on the job, and to say that during a pandemic is really a testament to the work that you've done. So thank you. I'd also like to throw in there, and I know that there's staff, but for the nurses specifically, what a stressful year for you. We really appreciate everything that you've done, and I just want to echo exactly everything that you said. The saying, many hands make light work. This wasn't light work for anybody. Every single person involved in this, it was a heavy lift for, but it seemed like an impossible task, and we did it. And I really hope that all the teachers and all the staff get to enjoy their breaks, have some quiet time, not dry out their hands with hand sanitizer, just get dirty on a beach somewhere. You deserve it.
Don't look at emails, just relax.
Really.
For 2 months.
Really,
Yep.
thank you from the bottom of our hearts, because this is a tough year for kids, tough year for everybody, but we've seen it with the social emotional impact. This was a tough year for kids, and if you didn't think that it mattered, it did. Absolutely, 100%.
Thank you. That's it for me.
That's it for you. Wow. Thank you so much. So now we're going to transfer it over to the school committee and subcommittee report for accounts payable.
Okay, so I signed warrant 50, school lunch year 2021, dated 6/11/21, which was 2 batches totaling $4,057.09. Warrant 50, school year 21, dated 6/10/21, which was 11 batches totaling $410,662.12. And warrant 49, school year 21, dated 6/3/21, which was 8 batches totaling $266,105.84. There was nothing unusual, and I have copies of them if anybody wants to look at the details. Didn't get a chance to yet.
I have a question about the warrants. A lot of times there's just a person's name listed there. Is that a vendor, or maybe?
It can,
Listed where? On
Like on the warrants, when we get them to review?
so it can be.
Yeah.
Like, for example, it could be an official. It could be like a contractor. Courtney will know better than I can, but Um,
Yeah, it could be like, if you saw a person's name, a lot of times those are coaches.
Yeah.
Coaches and officials for the athletics, maybe that's what
Yeah,
you're referring
I
to?
did see some people like.
Yeah,
holding
those are
signs.
probably most of them, if it's an individual person's name. I
Yeah,
would say the vast majority would be coaches and officials for
okay,
athletics.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you review them, is there like specifically what it is?
You want me to give you a little lesson on what I do?
I was just trying to make sense of it, because I know there
Um,
are some vendors' names listed there, and that makes sense, you know, like.
Yeah.
Well, so when you look at the whole warrant, you're not just looking at this. There's like substantiating documentation. So you can see like
Everything.
the National Grid.
There's-
You can see the National Grid bills. You can see the
Okay.
copy machine rental. You can see the transportation lease. You can see the time cards for, like, if somebody worked on HVAC or something like that, like, you know, and
Oh, that's for prevailing wage, certified payroll requirements, that's for the prevailing wage law, yeah.
Yep, that makes sense.
yeah.
I was just wondering, you know, is there, I know that it's not just this amount of money going to this person, you know,
Right.
there's a story.
no, there
behind it,
is,
you know?
yeah. So
Oh, yeah.
like,
And then you'll also even see the purchase order, like I said, like the ones we signed today, it's about this thick.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, of paperwork. And a lot of it, sometimes when even Stacy gives me, I think, oh my God, I'm not gonna get through this, but then I realize, wait a minute now, a lot of it's the stacks of, the purchase orders and everything.
Right.
Because she has to record, we make sure that we are covering 12 months, so we don't have a prior year bill, and a bunch of things, you know, she's very, very careful at looking at them, both of them are. But yeah, so some of them will have a thick packet, but then others won't, that's not necessary. Depends on what it is, but, you know, you do become familiar.
Yeah,
Was
you
it
do. I
right,
mean, you can
Vicki?
even
When
see
you
some
look
of-
through them, you become very familiar with it.
Like some of the consistent, on this first one here, like some of the consistent charges where it's like $64, $64, $64. And like, to me, these are officials. And it says like the place where they were when they did the officiating.
And so in that example there, you'll actually see the paperwork with that. It's signed by the person doing the job. It's also signed off by Mary Sokol, the athletic director. And the fee is established by Maya. We get a chart of the fee, and that's given to Jean as a backup for segregation of duties and cross-check. I mean, but that'll all be there.
I didn't know if I was
Yeah.
looking at an invoice, but it sounds like the invoices are, you know, looked at.
Yeah, this is the
That's
short,
not-
this is the Cliff's Notes
Okay.
of,
Gotcha.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it, yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah. That's just actually the general ledger, the munis report. Our general ledger is munis, and that's actually the munis report. But with that is all that'll be this thick, and then with it will, you know, paperwork might be like that. But a lot of it's just the purchase orders, don't get scared.
Thank you.
So, we just have to keep everything together.
Anything else? Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. If everybody could review the June 2nd, 2021 meeting minutes? I know it's a big pack. I'll be looking for a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the school committee meeting minutes for June 2nd, 2021.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next one is the Douglas High School modification of graduation requirements. Mr. Romanos, I think you're going to come talk to us?
Hello, folks.
Hello.
So the Department of Education has a set of graduation requirements that they encourage. They're called the Mass Core Standards. And they're essentially the requirements to get into the UMass school system. So and they're also one of the metrics that they provide high schools data on is your Mass Core completion rate, the percentage of students that are Mass Core grads. So over the past few years, we added the 2-year foreign language requirement and the 1-year fine arts requirement in order to get our graduates in compliance with Mass Core. And, but above and beyond those requirements, we also have a 1-year technology requirement, 2 years of health, and a senior project graduation requirement. And those are not part of the Mass Core requirements. They're still valuable, but the problem is that students have 140 total credits that they can take at Douglas High School over their 4 years. And with all of our required courses, they're down to just 30 credits worth that they can actually choose to take whatever they want. And to put that in perspective, that's a full-year course is 5 credits, and a half-year course is 2.5 credits. So it's the equivalent of 6 full-year credits, 6 full-year courses that they can take. And that includes any Spanish classes they take beyond 2 years. It includes about half of our AP classes have to factor into that 30. And any business courses, any culinary arts courses would all fall into those, would have to come out of those 30 credits that they get. So, and students with an IEP who have academic support, they lose 5 more credits a year that they're in academic support. They have 10 credits that are free for them to choose what to do with over 4 years. And that makes it really hard for students to do the pathways that we have, and basically for them to take the new classes and the things that they want to take. So what I'm proposing is that instead of doing 5 credits of health, that we drop that down to 2.5 credits of health, and we drop the tech graduation requirement. And that'll open up a lot more space in student schedules for them to take the courses that they want to take. We'll keep the senior capstone. We've actually done a lot of work with that over the past couple of years to make different options for that for kids, and we think what we have there is a valuable program. The health topics that we dropped, we can probably work those into our advisory. So a lot of the mindfulness things that are done in health, the decision-making competencies and things like that, a lot of executive functioning skills, we do those in advisory now too, so they can be absorbed into there. And by dropping the technology requirement, it actually doesn't impact the enrollment in the technology courses very much. I was just running the numbers on the sandbox version. If we were to approve this, we would still have 142 students taking technology courses between robotics and computer science. So I don't think it's not going to suddenly mean that students aren't taking technology courses at Douglas High School. In fact, it probably frees up some space for Sean Tossi, my computer science teacher, to pursue the Project Lead the Way computer science pathway, because instead of just offering a bunch of entry-level technology classes to get kids their requirement, he can create that series of 3 courses that students would need to take to complete that pathway. It also allows Ms. Doherty to offer more culinary classes and allows just for a lot more electives. So I actually was looking again at that sandbox version of the schedule without the health and tech requirements. 150 students in art, 152 students taking business classes, and 92 students in culinary, and that's Ms. Doherty still teaches 2 sections of health in that model. So it can make a big difference in terms of getting kids into the courses that they want to take and building up the pathways that we're trying to do. So a little torn on like dropping the health, it seems counterproductive, but I think if we make up for that in the advisory, students aren't really losing anything on that side, and they're gaining a lot more flexibility in their schedules over the course of 4 years. So that's what we're looking at.
Do we know what the middle school health requirements are? Does anybody know?
They do have a health requirement, at least in 8th grade. It might be in 7th grade as well.
Okay.
Our last vertical alignment meeting, I think they had just 8th grade, but they were looking to expand it.
Okay. And then could you talk just a little bit more about the senior project? Like, what does that look like? And
Yeah, so the senior project, which we would still keep, so seniors have multiple options that they can do. They have sort of the traditional capstone senior project where we try to make it like a community-based project where they do sort of a community enrichment activity. For other students, and we've tightened those up too. Like when I first got here, kids would sponsor a hat day, and you pay $1, you come through the door and you get to wear your hat. I didn't really care for those, so we've kind of raised the bar on those. And actually, I'll be asking maybe you guys to come in and help to judge the presentations that students do that go with those next year. We also have an honors digital literacy course, which is meant to prepare students for the writing requirements in college. It specifically focuses on doing like independent research and original research. We have a career readiness course for students who are likely going to go into the job market instead of off to college. Students can also elect to do a DECA project, and they can elect to work on the yearbook. So we have multiple options for that now.
okay.
And they take that opposite their PE. So that one we really want to keep. We've invested a lot of time into making some things that really do cool stuff for kids there.
And that all sounds good to me. I think also it was a really long time ago that I was in high school, and at that point, technology was like new, and you really needed to you needed instruction to get into it. But I feel like I don't know what the tech courses are exactly that we are thinking about taking out, but kids are so tech savvy that it makes sense to me to have the electives for more specialized tech, if it's coding or whatever it is, that is going to sort of drive somebody more towards.
Yeah, that's
degree of
exactly
a
what we're looking
job.
to move to,
Yeah.
is less of the Microsoft Office suite.
Right.
And more of the, like you said, coding, because that also runs parallel to the robotics courses that we're doing too. So if we do this, we're trying to build up to doing our own advanced placement computer science course would be sort of the capstone for that. We do offer it now, but it's done as like an online course through Microsoft. So we'd like to make that more of an in-house thing that we're actually prepping the kids for.
Yeah.
So the focus would be more on coding and web design
Yeah,
than Microsoft Office and Google Suite.
right. Okay.
Is there still like an intro to tech type elective?
So there's still,
To our like totally,
there's kind of two sides to the tech thing, because there's also the manufacturing tech as well that we offer. So there is a science technology, which is going to become intro to engineering as we move into the Project Lead the Way program. And then that teacher also offers manufacturing, drafting, and, now I can't think of his other one.
Industrial arts?
CAD. So he does have we have that side of the house too, the more hands-on side, and then the computer science side. Technology actually the tech requirement can be met by either.
do they have to come into it having some knowledge of tech, or
Nope.
can they get that initial?
Nope,
when
the
they
science technology course that we offer that's going to become the intro to engineering, that's an entry-level course. Now, there are some units that the middle school is going to start rolling out that are also part of Project Lead the Way that are meant to kind of give some background and foundation for that. And I think, is that going to be launched next year?
No, the year after.
Okay, the year after, so the teachers still have to do the training for it, so, yeah, there'll be some things that feed into what the kids do up here, but ours are meant to be entry-level.
Great, yeah, that's great.
And then we'll still offer, like, on the coding side and the computer science side, we'll still offer the entry-level course, but like next year, he has 5 sections of the intro level. And I'd like to move, and that's, a lot of that is just kids taking a web design class so that they can meet that requirement. So if we can free them up from that requirement, I think it creates a lot more leeway in kids' schedules for some of them to take the more advanced courses. And for those other ones to take things like criminal justice and forensics that aren't part of
Right.
the graduation requirements.
Yeah, because some kids, like, in their lifetime have had a lot of tech, and they are like whizzes at it, and other kids have never been exposed to it, might actually, be something that they're into. They just need that exposure, so it's good to know that
Yep,
option
yeah.
is there for them.
They do, they'll have that option, yep. And the Project Lead the Way programs, once we have that, they do kind of assume, you can start with that as an intro level, and then students can advance through the courses. So it's meant to be something that, you can feed anybody in. I think the Project Lead the Way units that they do at the middle school, they're also designed to hook kids into wanting to do STEM. They're STEM-based things. So, but they're not a requirement. You can take the high school level courses having never done a sci-tech course before in computer science, and biomedical is the other one, so.
I completely support what you're promoting. I have one question. I don't know if you can answer it. I don't know if it's something that should even be discussed right now, but my question is this. For the language requirement, so that's 2 years in high school, right?
Yep, yeah.
So is there a way that that can be met in the middle school if we did it 7th and 8th?
There is, so I forget what because I had proposed this about 2 years ago. So I think part of the concern was, no, that wasn't one of the concerns.
I think part of the issue, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, is that when applying to colleges, a lot of colleges require 2 years, and it
That's
has
what
to
it
be of
was.
high school Spanish.
Right.
So even though you might take Spanish 1 in the 8th grade, you can't complete your requirement by taking Spanish 2 freshman year and having a 2-year requirement for college.
Yeah, that is what it
You
was.
still need to take 2 years at the high school level.
And it would meet the Mass Core metric and stuff like that, too. So if a student did Spanish 1 in 8th grade and then Spanish 2 in the high school, they wouldn't be considered having met the Mass Core requirements.
Okay.
So I think it's a great thing to still have the Spanish 1 down there, because a lot of our kids come up and we run a couple of small sections of Spanish 1, but most of our freshmen are in Spanish 2.
Oh, I really would like to have Spanish and French offered in 7th and 8th grade. I mean, I had that, and we had exchange students and everything. I was talking to Mrs. Reber about that. I mean, it's just so sad that we don't. I get why we don't, but I was hoping that could kind of maybe help us, but it doesn't sound like it will.
Oh,
I mean, it could in a
It
sense,
helps
but-
kids. It
yeah.
does help kids. It doesn't, in terms of like reaching advanced levels of languages.
Yeah.
You know, we should, now that the 8th grade level has been restored for a couple of years, I think we're going to see our Spanish 4 numbers next year are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And that should hopefully lead to some good AP Spanish numbers the year after.
Any other comments? Be looking for someone to make a motion?
Move to approve the elimination of the second year of health and technology graduation requirements from the DHS graduation requirements, starting with the class of 2024.
Motion made by Lisa and second by Monique. All those in favor?
Aye.
I've been doing evaluations all week, and as I talk to teachers, I say, so you'll be on this plan for the 2021-2023 evaluation cycle, and I think everybody's just kind of, just get me to Friday, Josh, and we can talk about Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you. All right, next is we're back to the electronic signatures.
So just, again, rehashing what we talked about earlier, is that in order to try to expedite the process, the state passed MGL 110G, which allows for electronic signatures to carry the same weight and legal authority as a wet signature. So we discussed this at one of our previous meetings, and we're coming forward now with a proposal. In order for that to happen, part of the statute states that we have to have it in an open meeting, we have to post it, we have to say that we're going to talk about it, which we did, and then there's the language below that needs to be stated in order to make this happen. So if there are questions, I know we already talked about it earlier, but if there's still questions on the electronic signatures, more than happy to try to answer them.
If there are no questions or further discussion, I'd be looking for a motion.
I did have a question about this, on the law, the KP law document, there's like a fill-in-the-blank type. Is that just illustrating like
So,
how
yeah.
we have to approve it here and now?
So the KP, so some of the language that we got for the motion came from the KP law. If
Okay.
you read the first part of it, under general use of electronic signatures, talks about why they went to electronic signatures and part of the reason why we can do it. There's also part of this, when you read a little bit further, that talks about some COVID stuff associated with it. And then where you see the fill in the blanks are the motions that are needed, depending on what role you have, in order to legally implement electronic signatures.
So this document, the certificate of vote authorizing, that's not it's just like the verbal process we're going through now, or do we actually have to complete a document?
No, we checked with legal counsel today, and he said all we need to do is make that motion and then inform the town, the municipal side, that we're now going to electronic signatures.
Okay.
I'm surprised we didn't do this pre-COVID, but, or before or during it, but it's all right. We're doing it now.
Right? I move to approve that the school committee for Douglas Public Schools hereby recognizes and accepts the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 110G regarding electronic signatures, and that its members will henceforth execute documents either with electronic signatures or with wet ink signatures, and that both will carry the same legal weight and effect.
Second.
Motion made by Becky, second by Monique. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Good. Thank you. The next one is over to Courtney for the school business and operations managers report.
I don't have any transfers or reclasses this evening. So the next thing down on the agenda is just to recognize Telstone and Son Incorporated, our school bus transportation company. For instance, this year, if you recall, we had the middle school evacuation, and I contacted the owner and the manager of the company, and it happened like right after they all would have gone home. And so they all stayed here, and in fact, 3 of the bus drivers canceled doctor's appointments to stay here for our kids. But that's nothing new for Telstone. They've been doing that for the over 19 years that they've been our bus company. And of course, the high school graduation, every year they do for nothing, as far as shuttling back and forth. And just wanted to say thank you. I always send them something in a letter in writing, but I also wanted to recognize them here as well.
Even just to piggyback.
They do a great job.
To piggyback off of that, we had our grade 8 promotion ceremony. One of the issues that we were running into was parking spaces. So I said to Matt, why don't we do the reverse of what we do for high school graduation and use some of the high school parking lot as overflow parking? Ms. Keegan called Telstone. 3 minutes later, he said, give me a few minutes. 10 minutes later, he said, we'll have a bus for you tomorrow from 11:30 to 1:30 to transport people back and forth. And he did that within 15 minutes. So it's a testament to how committed they are to the district.
Thank you so much, Telstone. Awesome job. Anything else, Courtney?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any topics that we haven't anticipated for this evening? Are we going to have an executive session this evening? So I'll first do, our upcoming school committee meetings will be July 21st. That's going to be via Zoom. And then August 18th is also going to be via Zoom, just for the public to let you know that that's what we're going to plan to do. Anybody have any issues with that?
I did have a question about this because the governor had allowed Zoom meetings through this week. Did he approve it ongoing till March? Okay.
It came out today, probably around lunchtime, that they
Okay.
approved it.
Through March, right? Is that right?
April 2022.
Okay.
April? Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
They're going to work on it. I would assume that they're going to make it a even
Permanent.
more, just technology evolving.
Yeah.
So how do I do this correctly? I could say that we're going to adjourn to executive session, then we will come back out of the session
We
and close it?
will not come back.
We
out
will
of
not
exec-
come back out of,
Correct. So you just read
Read that out.
written here, then we'll do a roll call vote.
To discuss
To
the
discuss the strategy.
we're going to enter into executive session to discuss the strategy with respect to collective bargaining or legislation in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the government body and conduct a collective bargaining,
And not to return to open session.
and not to return to open session. All those in favor?
We have to roll call
Roll call.
vote.
Roll call vote?
Lisa Brown, aye.
Becky Charniak, aye.
Monique Salvis, aye.